Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We are live from Nashville, Tennessee. Today is Wednesday, April 30th, and I am your host, Josh Newberg. We have a big show today because there's been lots of new developments that we got to talk about. But first, hit that subscribe button to the On3 Recruit channel. We're trying to grow this thing to 100K. I think we can get there. Just go on, smash the subscribe button. All right, so today's show, we're going to talk some Florida Gator recruiting, Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They got something going on. And we're going to detail some of the biggest flips and decommitments so far this cycle. But first, let's talk about the biggest developments in college football recruiting. Let's get into it. Of course, we have predictions. Nebraska quarterback prediction. The number 3 ranked quarterback in the 2027 class, Trey Taylor, is about to come off the board. He said he's ready to make his decision tomorrow on Thursday. He's at Carmel Catholic in Illinois, and right now, the predictions are rolling in for Nebraska. It's 6'3" and 190 pounds. Nothing's done yet, but his finalists are LSU, Michigan, Nebraska, and Texas A&M. And if the On3 RPM is any indication, then tomorrow we should expect Nebraska to land a huge quarterback addition. Now, he's a 2027 quarterback. I know there's a couple of Raiolas on the roster that they got to get through, but eventually it'll be Trey Taylor's turn. All right, let's talk about a top tight end trending to Texas. The Longhorns are in the lead on the recruiting prediction machine for elite tight end Mark Bowman out of Mater Dei. Now, Max Torres is the one that dropped the prediction, which is interesting because his perspective on this. He's an Oregon writer, so he has a dog in the fight because Oregon's recruiting Mark Bowman, but he is not predicting Bowman to the Ducks. He's predicting Bowman to be a Longhorn. Of course, this recruitment far from over. Of course, Oregon, USC, Georgia are some of the other players in this recruitment, but Texas sitting in a great spot for Mark Bowman. All right, LSU adds an elite DB, just like Mark Bowman was a reclassification from 27 to 26. So was elite cornerback Havon Finney, and on Monday night, he committed to LSU. LSU trying to hang on to this number 1 class. They had the number 1 class in America last year at this time, so we're not getting ahead of ourselves. We know what happened last year with Bryce Underwood and company, Decommits Moore, and a few others, but this class that they're building right now is really strong, and 4-star corner Havon Finney is the latest to commit to the Tigers. All right, major offensive tackle trending to USC. First of all, who's hotter than USC this cycle? We've been following USC recruiting, and nobody has been as hot as the Trojans on the recruiting trail early in this 2026 cycle. And there's another massive prediction from Steve Wiltfong, and it comes from one of the best offensive tackles in America. Kenny Pepe is now being predicted to be a Trojan. Some thought the Miami Hurricanes were in the best shape to land him. But Steve Wiltfong of On3 is saying it's going to be USC. We'll have to keep an eye on it. We got predictions for another Cali recruit trending to the Oregon Ducks. This time it's 4-star edge Richard Wesley. He goes 6'4", 250 pounds, and he is really good. He's a top 10 player at his position, a top 50 overall prospect in the country. And he was an early classification. It wasn't exactly sure. Would he be a 2027 recruit? Would he be 2026? Well, he reclassified, and it is on. Everybody in the country is recruiting Richard Wesley, but our own Steve Wiltfong is now predicting him to be an Oregon Duck. We got a 5-star that made a big announcement. Brandon Arrington, the top cornerback in the country, is going to make his commitment on July 5th. And who's it going to be? Is it going to be Bama, Oregon, Penn State, Texas A&M, USC? Here's the thing with Brandon Arrington. Every time he takes a visit, he seems to love that visit. We always feel like whether he comes off an A&M visit, Bama, USC, hey, that team is the team that's out front because Arrington seemed to love it. Well, he's loved a bunch of these visits. Most recently, coming off that Oregon trip, he decided it's time to set a decision date. Like I said, July 5th. We will find out where Brandon Arrington is going. It will be a huge announcement. Speaking of huge announcements, did you see what happened on Wednesday afternoon? Big flip. Rivals.com flipped to On3. That's right. On3 has acquired Rivals. So let me know, who should we get on? Who's your favorite publisher from Rivals that you want to see on this channel talking recruiting? Let me know. Comment section below. Florida quarterback DJ Lagway is throwing again. We got Corey Bender here from Gators Online. Corey, what's been the reaction from fans seeing Lagway throwing the football?
I mean, they've been brimming with joy, Josh. I know we all kind of expected it. I know at the end of the spring game, he played limited in the orange and blue game. He gave some handoffs, but took the field, but wasn't throwing. We all expected it to happen at some point. We're all hinted at that. But I know Keith Niebuhr, my coworker, he spoke with Derek Lagway's dad, and and like I said, he was on track. He's throwing again. I know just recently on Twitter, the last 48 hours, there's a little clip of him throwing too. So I just think there was some concern, obviously at the end of last year. I mean, most of last season he was banged up, especially the Georgia game. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of saw him throughout the spring. He didn't practice much at all. And then you see him in the orange and blue game, obviously with pads on, but just gave some handoffs. And we all know what a crucial big year this is coming up for Florida. So just kind of a sigh of relief, I think is the best way to put it, to see, okay, everything's progressing. He's throwing the ball. And even though I think Florida right now, they have a few backups on the roster. Obviously, no one really, as of right now, on Lagway's level. So I just think knowing he's healthy, that's the biggest thing. And obviously, we're still about a month and a half away from summer camp, and we'll see more and more of that. But I think right now it's just fans expected it, but actually see it on camera, it's been a big sigh of relief, and they're excited to kind of see him get back out there, especially after not playing in the spring.
Yeah, I think the mysteriousness around it all kind of had people worried, and the fact that, hey, he's not throwing in the spring, he's handing the football off in the spring game, had people kind of buying the rumors, but putting the video out of him throwing, I'm sure, brought relief to the fan base. All right, let's switch gears here, talk a little recruiting. Isaiah Williams, the number 1 ranked linebacker for On3. He's made 4 commitments. The most recent one was to the Florida Gators. And I thought for sure after the 4th commitment that this recruitment was done, but it feels like it's still ongoing. What's your read here with Williams after a recent visit to Ole Miss?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is after he took the visit to Ole Miss, he deleted everything off his social media that was Florida Gators. It's just all there is a picture of him in Ole Miss gear. And I think when you look, I mean, this is a kid that ran the 4.42 as a linebacker at Under Armour camp, number 1 ranked linebacker in the country. So I think if it was another kid that was maybe ranked lower, I don't even know if Florida, a lot of the schools would kind of put up with the drama that kind of goes in his recruitment. But he is truly a wild card right now, man. I've been speaking to his representation all throughout the week. I know they were kind of caught off guard when he changed up his social media, and they're really trying to keep him grounded and actually kind of stay in the moment. And, I know it's one thing when they kind of saw that on Sunday, they were kind of just like putting oh man, here we go again. Because I know he's a kid right now that's from the Florida fan base. If you go on Twitter, especially the stories I've written, a lot of fans, you have some saying, hey, move on. We don't need this drama. And you talk to Isaiah in person. He doesn't come off like that type of kid at all. He's like a soft-spoken, really nice kid. But I think we're in the NIL era. And I know from what I've heard from talking to people close to him, yes, he's committed to Florida, but the thing I was told is not a marriage. And, you have to continue to recruit these kids all up to sign day. I know Ole Miss has a really big, backing for NIL. And for what I was told as well, Florida and Isaiah Williams' camp, they have yet to discuss NIL at all. I know that's something their camp really isn't surprised about, because usually on OV weekends, that's when it's kind of further discussed. But it's one of those kids that, from what I'm told, he's still going to take official visits. I know Georgia's a school that's coming on strong with him. You have the Texases of the world. I know Florida State, despite him decommitting from Florida State before, obviously committing to Florida, they're still in the mix. So it's one of those kids, man. I mean, the proof is in the pudding with him on the field. Over 100 tackles, a really elite athlete. I know from what I was told too, Josh, North Carolina is a school they OV'd early this year. They're actually not completely out of the picture. I know Bill Belichick himself has said, hey, this is a guy from, talking to his camp that, let us coach him. He's a guy that'll have a long career in the NFL. So it's a guy that is getting a lot of attention, understandably so. But when it comes to Florida, they kind of have to hold their breath a little bit, because he's going to take more official visits. And, Florida was a school he loved growing up, and he wanted to commit there back in the fall, but Florida actually kind of turned him down at the time. They said, hey, we want to keep building that relationship and getting to know you more. And like you said too, Josh, like when he committed to Florida, that was his 4th commitment. I thought myself, especially with that being his dream school, his favorite school, that it was going to be shut down. But as of right now, I told members on the Swamp Talk message board, I mean, it could really go either way, and it wouldn't surprise me. It's really a complete wild card at this point. All
right, let's wrap this up with 2 monsters in the trenches. We'll start with 6'4.5", 315-pound Kendall Gervil. He's on the defensive side of the ball. This recruitment, because he's from Fort Myers, It's kind of reminding me of Myron Charles last year, which was a in-state recruitment with FSU and UF until the Texas Longhorns got involved, and now it looks like Texas is involved in this one. Gervil was out in Austin this past weekend. Are the Horns the biggest competition here?
Yeah, I know from obviously our Texas site on 3, they reported that Texas, they feel like they're in the driver's seat right now. And I know when we spoke to them in Gainesville after the Orange and Blue game, we're doing the spring all together. Georgia was number 1, Florida was 2, just above Texas. But we all kind of know Texas, once they get kids on campus, they really can generate momentum with a lot of these kids, and that was the case here. Right now, I look at it as a 3-team race. Yeah, Georgia, Texas, and Florida. Those 3 have been the most consistent for a while, and I think he's visited Florida more than any other school by a long shot. And I know when it comes to recruiting, it almost gets to the point where it's like, man, I've seen everything. I don't like to use the word stale, but yeah, I mean, you get so used to it that
what's another visit going to do?
Yeah, exactly. So I think with him, I know he's a major priority for Florida. I know Gerald Chapman, the D-line coach, when we were interviewing him in the spring, he was off to the side watching, and he was howling and hooting and hollering while we were doing the interview, and saying like, man, we want Kendall Gervil in Gainesville. And Kendall's laughing the whole interview. It's just their relationships are super strong. But even after that, he was saying Georgia's my number 1. And then obviously Texas has momentum. The good thing with Florida, I think, on their side is this is a kid that doesn't want to decide until late in the game, probably in early December. So I think for them, the best case is, hey, keep chipping away, get them on campus. And I think the biggest thing will be winning games. It's kind of like last cycle, Josh, when you saw Florida finish really strong with a lot of these kids, and a lot of it had to do with those wins over LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State. So they're playing the long game here, but I think those 3 schools by far have the most momentum. Is a pretty tight race.
All right, now how about IMG offensive lineman Ganiver Carr? He goes 6'4", 330. Who's involved in this one? We know the Gators are.
Yeah, so you got Tennessee, you got Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, Miami, schools like that. And, this is a kid from Ocala, not about 30 minutes out from Gainesville. His mom, obviously, she loves Florida. That's a school she's liked throughout her life. And, a lot of people have put in picks for Florida, and understandably so. I think they've had the most momentum. But he did go to Knoxville a couple weekends ago. And from what we were told, Tennessee looks like they're in the driver's seat. I know they feel really confident right now, too. So right now, I think if he was to decide today, it might be between Tennessee and Florida, maybe with the Volunteers getting the nod. But I think over time, another kid like with Gervil, who's visited Florida so many times, grew up not far from Gainesville. I think that OV over the summer is going to be huge. I think that could be the determining factor. The thing is, from what I can remember too, I think Tennessee has the last OV. I don't know if that was a strategic move to kind of remind him at the end that, man, that first visit I had left such a big impact on me. Hopefully that will come back. But I think, man, it's tough to call. I still think he ends up at Florida long term. I just think as it gets closer to sign day, the appeal of coming back home, that will be a big thing with him. Obviously, not only being at home 30 minutes away, but it's still the in-state school. But I think right now Tennessee is a school that just surged, but you still got to look at Florida as a long-term favorite, in my opinion.
All right, Gator fans, there it is from Corey Bender, Gators Online. Talk to us, though. How are you feeling when you saw that DJ Lagway throwing film? Let us know. Comment section below. In this video, we're going to talk about the biggest decommits and flips so far in 2026. Recruiting, the summer is when it really heats up, but there's been some major developments that we're going to talk about. But before we get going, guys, do me a favor, smash that subscribe button. This is the On3 Recruit channel, the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, and we want you guys to be a part of it. Go on, hit subscribe. All right. Let's start with one of the biggest decommitments so far. Some watching this right now may not know that Georgia already had a 5-star commitment in the 2026 cycle. Now, the year was 2024 when he committed, and he was only committed for about 6 or 7 months, but Jared Curtis was a commitment for Georgia. Yeah, the Dogs early on beat out Oregon, who's in it now, Ohio State, Alabama, USC, South Carolina for the 5-star, but he would only be committed for 6 or 7 months. Maybe he was just a little naive to the process, but he wanted to take some visits, and he opened up that recruitment. So if you just started following recruiting in, say, February, you may not know that Jared Curtis was committed. Now, that was 13 months ago. So fast forward to today, Georgia is still battling Oregon for the commitment of Jared Curtis, and we're going to find out next week, Cinco de Mayo, if Curtis will ultimately be a duck or a dog. Let me know what you guys think. All right, Oregon, they've been hit with a couple major losses. So Next week's decision for Jared Curtis takes on even more importance because of what happened with Jonas Williams. Remember Williams? He was a top 10 quarterback from Frankfort Heights, Illinois, and he committed to Oregon briefly before finding an even better fit with the rival USC Trojans. There's been a lot of highs for Oregon recruiting, but there has been some blows delivered specifically by USC. Besides Williams, the Trojans also flipped prize defensive lineman Tom Tapui, while five-star offensive tackle Cody Green, he flipped to Washington. Didn't really see that one coming. I mean, he plays at Mater Dei, but he's originally from Seattle, so maybe that's why he decided to flip to Washington. But that was definitely a hit that Oregon recruiting didn't see coming. So, like I said, there's been highs, there's been lows. It's been a roller coaster. I mean, hey, the Ducks have had the number 1 class in America, currently sitting inside the top 10 at number 7 right now, but they'll have a chance at number 1 because over the next 2 weeks, you got Jared Curtis, number 1 quarterback. You got Jackson Cantwell making his decision, number 1 offensive tackle, and Oregon's right there for both of them. What do you think? Can Oregon pull it off? All right, we've also seen some quarterbacks on the move. We've already seen Jared Curtis and Jonas Williams come off their early commitments, but there's been even more movement at the quarterback position. Quarterback Brady Smigel, he's a top 10 passer, originally committed to Florida State, but after the season, Florida State switched OCs and Smigel put himself back on the market. Then just last week, big decision for Smigel. He committed to the Michigan Wolverines. Yes, from Florida State to Michigan. And one more quarterback I got to hit on. We'll be talking about him in the weeks and months to come. It's Landon Duckworth. He's from Jackson, Alabama, and he was an early commitment to South Carolina. Got a lot of interest, reopened his recruitment a couple months ago now. Ole Miss, FSU, Georgia, those are some of the teams that are chasing him. And after Jared Curtis comes off the board, all eyes will focus in on Landon Duckworth. So lots of movement so far at quarterback, but I think there's going to be more to come. All right, Texas A&M and USC have been doing the poaching. There have been 2 teams doing the most poaching we've seen early in this cycle, and one shouldn't be a surprise because, well, they're one of the hottest teams on the recruiting trail this cycle, but the other might be a surprise to you. Battling for the number 1 spot in the rankings all year has been the USC Trojans, and one of the reasons why they've been so hot is their ability to flip top recruits from rival programs. Guys like Jonas Williams, Tom Tapui, Usun Tafa, they've given USC recruiting a huge jolt early on, but guess what? Trojans aren't done. Expect more fireworks this summer as things heat up for USC. Now, Texas A&M is the other program that's been eyeing others' prized recruits. They flipped running back Jonathan Hatton from Oklahoma early on. Top 100 prospect, committed to Illinois. Victor Singleton didn't stand a chance. A&M flipped him, and they're working on a big one right now. On3's number 1 linebacker, Isaiah Williams. He's committed to the Florida Gators, but he's already had 3 other commitments, so who's to say Isaiah Williams doesn't make a 5th commitment and the Aggies are chasing? It has been a wild first few months of the 2026 cycle, and things are only going up from here. Who do you think will be the big flip that everybody's talking about this summer? Let me know. Comment section below. Let's talk a little Notre Dame recruiting because the Irish are battling Michigan for another big recruit. We're going to find out Saturday, but first, I got Mike Singer here, and Mike, I was on the site this morning trying to read a little bit about Javian Osborne, but you keep dropping predictions. Tell us about the latest.
Yeah, Evan Jacobson, a 4-star tight end, who I'm liking for the Irish there. Florida State, Auburn, Missouri, some of the other schools in the mix for that 4-star prospect. But yeah, liking where the Irish are at. You know, Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator, tight ends coach, had a really good home visit with him this week. Great first trip to campus earlier in the spring. Just think that Notre Dame ends up getting this one done as he takes that official visit in the summer.
So as we talk, Notre Dame sitting at number 4 overall, 12 commitments, plenty of room for more. What do you credit this success? Is it Marcus Freeman just have things rolling? Is it NIL on point? What's going on here?
I think it's kind of like an all of the above type thing, Josh. You have to credit the national championship run. So it's not as much of a sell of like, hey, this is what we could do here with you. It's like, hey, we also, it's what you could do here, but also we just made the national championship games. You see us against Georgia, you see us against Penn State. So I think it's kind of all of this combined. And they got on guys early, and I think they're recruiting a lot of the right guys. Like Notre Dame is not going to be able to recruit every player in the country. Like what Alabama's board would look like is going to be a lot different than Notre Dame's. Like just because like Notre Dame with the academics, and not to take a shot at Alabama, but so I'm just saying like with the academics, like Notre Dame's just not for everyone. It's built for a certain type of kid. And I think that Notre Dame's done a really good job of identifying those young men early. And they offered many of the guys that you look at their leading four and many of the guys on their commit list, they offered last March for their big pot of gold day, which we've talked about on this program, Josh. So Notre Dame's definitely done a good job recruiting guys early and recruiting the right guys.
All right, let's move on to Javian Osborne. It's going to be Michigan or it's going to be Notre Dame, and we're going to find out Saturday. So what's the latest intel? It seemed like things have been trending in the Irish's direction, but what are you hearing as we're getting right down to it?
Yeah, I think that Notre Dame should be considered the team to beat. Had a good time at Michigan by all accounts. But, if you're Notre Dame, you're definitely feeling a lot better about, his commitments upcoming than you are about if you're a Michigan fan. So no home visit from the Notre Dame staff with Osborne, to my knowledge, at least as of now. And we'll see, maybe they get to see him later in the week and try to make sure that everything is good on their end. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm thinking the Irish have got a better shot than Michigan does at this point.
All right, so we will see what happens. But what do we do after Osborne commits? Because we have you on all the time, and we're focused on this guy, that guy, and now it's Javian Osborne. So after Javian Osborne commits, if he ends up being the 13th commitment in this class for Notre Dame, what do we focus on next?
There's some guys with like July commitment dates, but Josh, we know we've been around a while. Those things can be, if you're a couple months out, it could subject to change. So there's a May 10th one though from Tiki Hola from Bastrop, Texas, big interior defensive lineman who Notre Dame really wants. But from there, we'll see if they could get any commitments before June official visits. Otherwise, some of those guys might be waiting. Nick Reddish and Joey O'Brien, two huge defensive back targets for the Irish. Notre Dame badly wants those guys. Caden Finley from Texas, the Longhorns legacy. Notre Dame really wants him, but it's like, are any of these guys going to pop before their official visits? They're so close to taking those June trips. You got to think that they're going to lean towards taking them, but we'll see if Notre Dame's able to get anyone to pop in there.
Yeah, a lot of excitement around the program, and here's what we're going to do on Saturday. We're going to go live after that Javian Osborne commitment, and depending on who he chooses, I'm either going to have you on the channel with me or I'm going to have EJ Holland from the Wolverine, but either way, we are going to be here celebrating Javian Osborne's commitment. We're going to bring on some live callers. You guys can have a chance to talk live with Mike Singer. I mean, you can talk with me if you want, but we're going to have Mike Singer or EJ Holland on with us live talking about this Javian Osborne commitment. That's Saturday night. So, Mike, we'll just have to wait and see. But in the meantime, keep dropping those predictions. It's really fun to see.
I got you, Josh. We'll maybe do a couple more in the next week. We'll see.
We're talking transfer portal. I got JD Piquel from the On3 YouTube channel here with me. JD, when it comes to Oklahoma Sooners, it's been a roller coaster ride, but who doesn't have a roller coaster ride in the portal these days? So Oklahoma, we're here to talk about how they've upgraded. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. It's kind of a layup here, but what do you like about what they've done on offense?
Just a lot of names, Josh. The obvious one is John Mateer, and the thing with him is there's proven production. You're not hoping it works out. You watch his film from a year ago, 44 total touchdowns. Okay, I feel pretty good about what he brings to the table. But I think there's the skill players that get me excited. Jade Knott from Cal, the Calgorithm, if you will, can throw it to him, help you in the pass game. Also, Giovanni Gibson, a guy from Arkansas Pine Bluff, from the FCS level, transferring to Oklahoma. He was the buzz of the entire spring until he went down with an injury, and it sounds like he'll be ready for spring practice. So to put a bow on this thing, Josh, Oklahoma offensively, just substantially more dynamic. There's more guys to account for in the pass game. I mentioned Jay not in the run game. Like there's more there to be excited about, and there's more to be excited about, more for defense to defend, which is tough.
Yeah, and Brent Venables got in the portal early. They made an impact. They've utilized it. Now they have lost some guys, but on the defensive side of the ball, one of the biggest additions was maybe not letting somebody go.
Yeah, keeping David Stone, Josh, was huge. Like I think you and I both saw that on our timeline with the David Stone going to enter the transfer portal graphic, and we're like, wait a second. Like this dude was balling during spring. We're hearing he's going to be a massive part of the defense. Also, you play defensive line in a Brent Venables scheme, set yourself up for a lot of success, and so it never totally made sense. But credit Jim Nagy, credit everyone involved at Oklahoma for keeping a David Stone on the roster. And, I mean, that's a massive win for them in the SEC.
Because they made an investment. No matter what, they paid him a year of NIL, whatever it took to get him there, all the time, money, resources. And at that specific position, I mean, that's maybe the one position on the field where if you're a 5-star and you don't make an impact your freshman year, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you'd hate to see all the development, all that time, money, and resources just fade away to the transfer portal. So I love it. I think that the Oklahoma defense, what do you think that the strategy was to bolster? What did they need to do specifically to upgrade that defensive side of the ball?
I think for them, a lot of it is shoring up the back end of that defense because there's some youth there, some unproven production, if you will. The buzz, though, out of Oklahoma is like, hey, we feel really good about the defense. I actually talked to somebody in Norman who said they think that's going to be the strength of their football team in 2025, which
you would
with John
expect
Mateer, you feel good
at
about
this
that.
point in Brent Venables' cycle of coaching, that the defense is finally coming along.
Yeah, you would hope so. I mean, they were good last year, but to your point, like it comes along in the sense of it's like it's a continual flow, which I think is exactly right, man. I'm like, it's so interesting too to me that Brent Venables called his own number to call the defense because the whole Jim Knowles things happen where maybe they're going to get him, maybe they're not. Ends up going to Penn State, does Jim Knowles, and so if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're like, well, who's going to be our DC? And then Brent Venables says, well, I'm probably one of the best defensive minds in the sport. I'll call the defense, which to me just says they understand what they're trying to get done. The standard is way up here, and they get that. That's a good sign for Oklahoma fans.
Yeah, and they hit the portal hard. So OU fans, talk to JD and I. How do you feel about the Sooners' strategy in the transfer portal, and what is your favorite upgrade? I mean, outside of the quarterback position, we know that's a massive upgrade, but what's your favorite upgrade this cycle? Let us know.